I'm Lynn, and here's what's happening at Ewetopia Farms today. No problems until we start putting sheep outside, and then we run into all kinds of stuff. Time for their cereal at breakfast time on the farm.
It's the latest I've ever planted beans. So, a little bit of crop talk, and I'm so happy the crops are in because it was actually really weighing on me. That's why we're giving them a little bit of our grain, okay? With a little bit of protein.
So let's get started. The ram paddocks are basically chewed down now. So today, Arnie decided to try a wrapped bale with these guys. We figure even though there's not 100 of them, that they are big enough that they could probably eat through a wrap bale in 2 days. So we thought we'd give it a try. They should like that. And that way, that will make up for not being able to go out on pasture. And there's a few of them limping from being out on pasture, so we have to gather them all up. Today's a scorching hot day, so we're going to leave them today probably. And I'm guessing tomorrow that's what we're going to be doing. They should be quite happy with that hay. We actually have a nice little platform here with this lean-to for shelter and food. We got some nice trees growing over if they want to lay in the shade there too. And they can't get limpy feet on concrete. Come here. You guys need to go try that fresh hay. You're gonna like it. It's not first cut. Normally they just get first cut. There's another guy that's limping. Yeah, I see we have no problems until we start putting sheep outside, and then we run into all kinds of stuff. Time for their cereal at breakfast time on the farm. Arnie's just heading out to what he hopes is the last day of planting. Today is bean day. Arnie had these ewes locked in for the day because he was driving in the runway, I guess. But I decided to let them out. And they can get some grazing done before nightfall.
So today, got the last of the beans in. The 4th of June. It's the latest I've ever planted beans. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, because without the moisture, they're not going to get germinated that quick. So we'll keep you informed how that turns out this summer. Right now the bean fields are dry. So a little bit of crop talk for my viewers. And Lynn says it's 9% of my viewers now. I got 9% now. We're up 1. But I just want to tell you what I've done here. So, purchased this machine 3 years ago off a farmer in Western Canada, Western Ontario, I should say. He's retired. It sat in the barn for several years. He didn't use it. And I purchased it. I didn't pay very much for it at all. So I think most people know the story. We put new blades on it. We put notch blades in the front and finishing blades at the back. It was a 20-inch blade originally. We went to a 22-inch blade, and I wish I went to a 24-inch blade because there's enough room to get a 24-inch blade on there. But the 22-inch blade is pretty good. The reason why we wanted the bigger blade, the bigger the wheel, the more trash it will take down without getting clogged up. Anyways, my point is, I love this machine. So we do the first pass over the field with this machine to break the crust and to break it loose. This machine is quite large, so it has quite a bit of weight to it, so it cuts in. I'm actually holding it out of the ground from going too deep, because I only want to go down about 4 inches, 4.5 inches deep. And I gotta hold it up or it wants to sink. So you can see the beams here are quite heavy. There's quite a bit of weight. I've used a lot of these machines in the past, but they were smaller, didn't have a lot of weight to it. This machine here actually just wants to cut right in. I gotta keep it up. I love this machine. It makes short work of a field and chops the field right, opens it right up to breathe and dry out. So I love that machine. I wish I had a lot earlier. I'm in love with it. And a farmer told me 3 years ago it was 35 years old. Not that I'm on a trip about that, but that's an old machine. Well looked after. The only thing I recommend for anybody, if you get a larger one like this, you got the weight that'll cut in, but you have to have enough horsepower to pull it. This one here needs easily 100 horse to pull it. The only thing I would recommend if someone bought a used one like this is to get the rock flex on here. So the rock flex is a big spring on here. So when you hit a rock, it actually gives a little bit and it doesn't break the machine. This one doesn't have a rock flex. This is an older one. I don't think they had rock flexes when this one was built. I would highly recommend to get a rock flex one if you can find them. A rock flex one, you're going to have to pay a little more money for it. I paid under $3,000 for this one. I don't like to brag about that. I don't feel I ripped the guy off. He asked, he wanted the money. I just paid that money. So I paid under $3,000 for it. I thought it was a fantastic deal. I had to put new blades on it. Were quite expensive, but it's well worth it. So since I don't have the rock flex, I hit a rock last year and I snapped this axle in here. You can see it, there's an axle goes right through there. And I snapped that axle. It was $300 to put a new axle in. It wasn't about the $300. It was about the time it set me down. It took me 2 days to order the axle. And on the third day, we put it back together and we were back in the field. So it laid me up for 3 days. What I really like about this machine is, if you look at that axle, it doesn't go all the way up in across. It actually, right there, see? It's actually 2 small axles. So if one axle breaks, it doesn't break the whole wing down. It's just half a wing. So I like that option a lot. 2 short axles. Anyways, I love that machine for breaking the field to get it to dry out. And it takes the corn stalks right down too. It never clogged up on me. We do 1 pass with that. We broadcast or fertilizer on the field, broadcast it. And then we go in with this machine. And this is a finishing machine. It's got the sweeps on it, the harrows at the back, and it just levels the whole field right out, and then we seed it. So those are the 2 main machines we have, and there's nothing no-till about this machinery. This is done the way your grandfather farmed the fields, unless he had horses. But anyways, that's a little crop talk for tonight. We're done the beans. The beans are in. Crossing their fingers for some water tonight and tomorrow. And I'm going to start putting this machinery away. And I'm going to pop off my dual. Get the mower hooked up. And start getting ready for wrapping hay. Just to get back to this machine. So you see that's not a rock flex. A rock flex is like a big spring right in there. So the purpose of that is, it doesn't save your machine. But what a rock flex does is when you hit a rock with that disc, it gives a little bit, enough for the machine to go over top of the rock. So right now, if I hit a rock It's just like hitting a stone wall. There's no flex, and it's probably going to shatter something. So that's why you'd want a rock flex disc. And my other machine has a flex on it. I can show you what it looks like. This machine's old, didn't have it probably. I would highly recommend to get a rock flex if you were to buy one of these. And the second thing that's wrong with operating this machine is, if you looked at my videos earlier, I was bragging that I was doing, I think, 6.2 miles an hour. That's too fast for this machine. So at 6 miles an hour, if you hit a rock, it doesn't have enough time to respond, and it's going to shatter something. This machine should only be really operated around 4.5 miles an hour. And that gives this machine enough time to crawl over the rock. So 4.5 miles an hour, this disc is, with a comb shape, is doing a real good job throwing the ground. 6 miles an hour, it's in a high risk. If you hit a rock, you're going to break something. I was doing 6 miles an hour, but this was a field that I know had no rocks at all in it. But that's the problem with this machine. It's so heavy that if you hit a good sized rock, it's not going to bounce out. It's actually got so much weight, it's gonna snap something. So, and what happened here was, I don't know if you can see it. Excuse me. But you see that bolt right there? Well, that's a homemade bolt. That came off a satellite dish because I hit a rock with that disc and I snapped that bolt off. So I think that's a grade 5 or grade 10 bolt, and I have to get a new bolt to put the proper bolt back in there. You can see the bolt there now. See it? I snapped that bolt right off. So I'm going to get a new bolt for that. I'll probably pick up a spare one. That's the bolt right there. Now, it could have been that the bolts are 35 years old and they've just lost their strength, and they should have new bolts in it. But I'm going to buy one new bolt, and I'll probably put one new one in and have one for, buy two, put one in the machine and keep one for a spare. Anyways, it's getting dark. I got to keep going here. I just had to go and get some cat food. And you can see the sun's going down. And I'm so happy the crops are in, because it was actually really weighing on me. A lot of work to do by myself. Not saying Lynn doesn't do her work, but Lynn doesn't do the cropping. It's more my work. So I'm just going to feed these guys. So these lambs are still getting creep feed. And when we say creep feed, it's basically a 17% ration. It's just not creep feed. It's got a little, it has some decox in it. And the reason why they're getting a little bit of creep feed, because I want to make sure they get all the protein. Now they are getting second cut alfalfa, and they're getting protein in that 17% ration. And if it was a problem, you would see that the manure down here, I can't find any manure. If they were getting too much protein, the manure would be kind of like a soft dog poo, and that would be an indicator that they were getting too much protein. But lambs at this age can absorb all sorts of protein because they're growing at such a massive amount of bone structure and weight that they can consume a lot of protein. Nobody has excuse, because these lambs are growing. They want to grow their potential, and that's why they're still getting that grain mix. But later in the summer, in the fall, these ewe lambs will be on a straight corn diet, straight corn, grain corn, and alfalfa wet hay. But right now, I want them to have extra protein because I want them to grow. So, as you hear somebody screaming over here, somebody again gets into the chute and locks himself in here. Barty, what are you doing? How did you get in there? Hey, bud. Well, this is my big guy. Hey, Bubby. You're not the prettiest looking sheep. So we're just going to let him out. Get out. Yeah, this is, that's not what I would call a real fancy ram. But that's a real big, chunky bruiser for a commercial flock. Not saying commercial people shouldn't have good sheep, but that's just a meat machine. He's not the most prettiest ram. But anyways, I'm done here. I gotta get caught up. And I'm gonna shut these lights down. So that's why we're giving them a little bit of our grain, okay? A little bit of protein. Because I want them to get the protein to grow bones. If they're starving on protein, they're not gonna grow good bones. Good frame. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a ewe here. So if I didn't check this, she'd be out here all night. Come on. So got her in. So if I didn't check that, she would have been out there all night. I've made that mistake before. They just lay beside the coveralls. There's no problem really. Come on, Ben, Max. You see the sky is trying to act up there a little bit right there. But I need a lot more than that for it to rain. You know, people will often talk about how much grain you would feed an 80 or 90 pound lamb that you want to get to market. My opinion is, give them as much as they want to eat. You really won't lose any sheep. But I'm going to say something. This group of lambs here are going to get 6 pails like that right now full. And I'm going to guess that pail weighs every bit of 30 pounds. Lynn says actually streams, but these guys want to grow. And I want to finish them off quick and get them to the market. And the ones we want to keep. So they're all eating hay right now. And nobody's eating grain because there's none left. And Lynn says you're not really feeding them that much. Well, that's my first pail. And I'll be back in 2 minutes. So, a lot of people will say, I think I mentioned this earlier, that you can overfeed in grain. But how people get in trouble is, if you only take this group of lambs, and you only give this group, let's say, a half a pail of creep feed or a pail of creep feed once or twice a day, it's not enough for these lambs. And you realize what happens is, the lambs become hungry. They want more, okay? So then they gorge out. When you accidentally give them too much grain, they're going to gorge out. If lambs are fed hard all the time, they'll never bloat. They'll just eat their capacity and they're full all the time. So I hate to use this word, but people that underfeed the lambs are more in risk to have troubles than people that feed too hard. Too hard, they're always full, they'll never get in trouble. If they're underfed and they're fed accidentally a little too much, they're going to gorge out, okay? So to make a good example of this, so let's say I'm a real idiot, I got a real attitude on me, and I'm really bad to Lynn all day long, okay? And Lynn says, I'm going to punish you, Arnie. I'm not going to cook you any supper tonight. So then, I go to my bed and I pout all night long. And the next morning, she finally comes to her senses and makes up with me. And she makes me a beautiful meal on the second day. And what do? I gorge out on it because I'm hungry. So that's an example of when you're empty and you eat too much, or when you're always full and you just eat when you feel like it. So if people understand what I'm saying, but if you don't understand what I'm saying, I can try to explain it better. But you'll have less trouble if a sheep is always full than a sheep is half empty. That's actually a real nice little ram right there. I think that's Lynn's ram. So I'll be honest with you, tomorrow morning, that grain will be gone. They're going to eat it all night long. So there's nothing more I can do here. I'm done for tonight. See you in the morning.